Fair game. Because fair play. Sí, esto también me sé en inglés.
Fallas técnicas.
We need to blur that out, okay?
Welcome to the second part of El Seisito Platicador. The topic of today is something really, really interesting that we wanted to see. Haz tu fiesta.
The producer is telling me to point the light
Really?
at
Am
you.
I that black? Really, Elisa?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Sorry. My bad. For our producer that just made some coasters out of the napkins. Yeah. Love you, producer.
She was
Thank
like,
you.
you're going to leave a mark. So it was like, yeah. So, welcome to the second part of El Seisito Platicador. This part of the show, we wanted to discuss different things that people don't tell you before you get to start teaching.
I'm gonna flip this table, dude.
Yeah, sometimes
There's so many
it can
things.
be really frustrating. I always like to share, and I want to start this episode telling something that happened to me.
Go on. Yeah, go ahead.
When it was 2010, so it was like not that much ago yet.
That's 8 years.
Shut up.
It's 8 years.
Shut up. Can it? I started teaching. It was my first year teaching, and the first class that I started, it was in Escuela Primaria Luis Moya. And I remember that I got there.
Elementary school then. Elementary school.
It was elementary school. It was 4th grade. And I remember that I was really enthusiastic about it. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be the teacher that changes the world and everything. And after 15 minutes of the first class, the main teacher, or the principal teacher, because I was just the English teacher, and they were working with one teacher, and then I was just the English teacher that came to the classroom
Were you
every once in a while.
substitute, or you
No,
just-
I was like formally
You were there.
working there.
Okay,
But my
gotcha.
class, I was just seeing the group like for 1 hour a day. So the thing was that after 15 minutes of me trying to do different stuff and everything, I saw this student was in front of me just nodding. He was just looking at me with big eyes and really enthusiastic and a huge smile on his face. And then he was like, okay. Everything that I said, he was like, okay. And then after 15 minutes of it, the teacher comes up, like approaches to me, and then she's like, oh yeah, you know what? He's deaf.
By the way,
And I was
he's
like,
deaf.
what do you mean by he's deaf? Yeah, he's deaf. So how do you work with him? Oh yeah, we don't normally work with him. Another teacher comes, and then that's the teacher that takes him out of the classroom, and she works with him. And then I was like, okay.
English teacher?
Yeah. No, the special ed
needs,
teacher.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, yeah, but how is he going to learn English? And then, like, I remember the same day I came back to school, I saw Miss K. In those days, she was the principal of the school. Big shout out to Miss K. And then I told her, like, okay, how can I work with? Okay, no, actually, first I was like, okay, you know what? I'm already teaching, and I'm a teacher right now. And then she was like, yeah, congratulations, how you feel? And I was like, yeah, it's really good, and I feel that I can do something, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, you know what, by the way, I wanted to ask you, I have a deaf student, so what should I do with him? Like, what can you recommend me? And then she was like, I don't know.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, her honest answer was
Oh, yeah.
like, I don't know. And I was like, what do you mean by you don't know? Just like, you're my teacher, you're supposed to know everything. And then,
Tell me.
And then she was like, I honestly don't know. I have been working with, or I have worked with blind students, but never deaf. So, gee, I don't know. So it was like, okay, so what am I going to do now? And then I started researching about it, and I noticed that in 2 years and a half that I was studying to become an English teacher, no one ever told me that, okay, when you get to school, when you get into the real world, you might encounter with people with special needs. And it was a big shock for me. It was something really that I didn't know what to do at that moment. And at first I panicked, and then I was like, okay, I have to do something. So one of the things that people don't tell you normally is you're going to encounter with people with special needs. It was a big shock for me.
Definitely, yeah. Same here. during, and this is not like to speak bad about education or our school, but nobody taught me that. Nobody said, hey, yeah,
Okay.
technical difficulties, but we're gonna try to pick it up where we left. The camera stopped recording, we don't know why, but okay. So we were talking about disabilities and how it's a real, there are real cases that you might encounter in a classroom. Now, we received some questions on our social media asking us about
Tons of them.
like hundreds
Yes,
of them.
we choose the best 5, 6. Yeah, it's not that
Because we don't
only
have
receive
enough
6.
time to discuss
Yes,
all of them,
obviously,
right?
obviously. It's
Yeah.
not that we only receive 6. It's the fact that we want to get into the point because we regroup all of them. So, one of them was like, how do you control 52 students from a public high school?
Yes.
The answer might surprise you. No. It is a hard situation. We were saying something about creating this good rapport with the students, right?
Yes, I was saying that I do not have tons of experiences with large groups and high school students specifically. But I was saying that my way of control a group it's building a good rapport. So you can manage a group and take them to different directions, and you can work better at certain activities that in which on the other side, if you didn't have a good rapport, they could turn chaotic.
Yeah.
So
It's like the students that age are going to be challenging you or challenging your
authority, yeah.
and you need to create a good rapport. That's one of the key elements, and it doesn't matter like which level you're teaching. Sorry, I made a BB. You should like try to have a good rapport with them to create good communication, so that way you don't waste a lot of time like trying to control your group and not just or instead of controlling your group, like you get that time for you teaching something or teaching them something.
Right.
At
Now-
the same time,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I want to take this to the next level because somehow rapper, they're creating this rapper might come naturally for you and for me, but to some other people it won't. So in that case, what can we do? How can we manage?
at the same time, it's like, let's be honest, you have to be the teacher, so you need to define certain limits. You need to be strict, not unfair.
Not
that's
unfair.
That's a fine line. That's a thin line between being unfair and being strict. You can be absolutely cool and being strict at the same time, because you're asking for what a student should be delivering, and you give them, you explain, and then you're looking for something in particular. So it's like you can be strict, but at the same time not being unfair or not trying to scream or not trying to yell at your students. It's like, yeah, you need to be strict, you need to be strong, but like taking care of knowing where to apply that specific strength that you may have. So
Yeah, we're talking about classroom management in here, but on the learning side, I do find this question really challenging because as a teacher, I would like to focus individually on each one of my students, and I think we need to define what it means to set ourselves also like these specific lines or goals, and not to go crazy on trying to evaluate every single thing that your students are producing.
Yes.
So I do think that planning those mindsets and how and goals and how you're gonna get there, it's also really, really important. That if you had a 10 students class, that'll be totally different because you get more time to focus on each one of them.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you are having a big classroom or with a huge number of students, you need to find different strategies where you give to them the attention that they need and the attention that they deserve, without leaving the rest of your class like abandoned. So you need to really think through how are you going to plan your class, so that way you avoid wasting time. because that you're definitely going to need it. Before you know it, the time is going to pass, and you're going to be at the end of the semester with a lot of units or a lot of topics without being covered. So it's a process that you have to follow. And you need to give attention to those details. You need to find different strategies. You can try to sit them in groups, or to try to work in different ways, maybe a sitting a regimen, maybe something in particular that could work in order to maintain the order in your classroom, so you teach.
Totally. And it just jumped into my mind. I can't remember. I think every episode I say, I think I read this, which I have, that we shouldn't have classes bigger than, 20 students, because it gets really complicated. But again, we might face these circumstances. And also, like you said, take advantage of it. If you have a lot of people, that's what's reach of it. You have different experiences, you have different learning styles, and you find a way to group those things and then making these learning environments in these individual groups. I think that's also really helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you can try to take whatever that we're saying, or whatever. You can try to take all the things that we were saying and try to look for your own strategies.
And experiment. I do
Yes.
encourage people to experiment. Like, you will have one class that will be magnificent, and then you will have one that is horrible, and that's okay, because sometimes, or that's just me, that I try to plan and have this perfect, amazing class, but I need to be aware and conscious that sometimes it's not going to work out, and I can learn from that so I can change it in future classes.
Yes. And try to look different methods where your teaching talking time is being reduced, so that way your students pay attention to you. For example, I remember that actually we were discussing before recording this episode that Elisa was mentioning. I use silent way, and it worked, and my students were paying attention even more than what they normally do. So it was like, try to look different strategies, try to look different methods, look for something that can work for you, and make a good variety into your activities and into your lesson plan.
Yeah, variety,
That's one we
report,
can
and just try to have fun in a way, I guess.
Fun in a way. Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
so
another question
we have another
that we
question.
were that people received, tons and tons of questions that we have received. It was like, what about the working with the administration government? I don't know how to say Hacienda in English.
Hacienda. So all of you in Mexican context, it's a Mexican thing, right?
Yeah, it's a Mexican
Okay, so
thing.
Mexican thing.
You
Hacienda.
need to pay taxes.
Sad. You need to pay taxes.
And like, what to do in these kind of cases. So for this,
We
we're
need
going
to go to the professionals and
So we're going to
people
send
that are
our
really
cameras and
knowledgeable.
microphones with a professional that can explain to us about this.
Yes.
Es bueno que aquí es donde vamos con
Alright.
Vicky. O sea, aquí, en lugar de estar pasando esto, aquí va a haber un insert con Vicky.
Alright.
Vicky. Sí, aquí. Ahí, así.
Alright, then I'll go with my experience. Nobody told me, and another question.
Ajá.
How much time you have, Billy?
¿Cuánto tiempo tenemos ahí?
Sí, ok, sí, it's enough. ¿Lo quieres cortar para guardar ese? Seguro. And now you know how to do your taxes. Hopefully.
Kind of.
Kind of.
At least try.
At least we give you some information. So.
You don't want to get in problems with your taxes.
Yeah,
Saludos
no.
a Paulo. Yeah.
All right, so
okay.
continuing with the topic, you already shared a situation that you faced that nobody told you that you were gonna face. I guess on my end, it'll be that, man, I have. This is hard. How do you do it? Like, there's a lot of things.
Choose one.
I'll choose one. And for me, I think the most frustrating thing for me as a teacher, and also nobody taught me, is that learning processes are tough and complicated, and you will not see results right away. So you might teach this amazing lesson, but your students will get it, but they might not incorporate it into their knowledge in one day. So that's something that it is there, it's in the books, it's in the theory, it's like, yes, but in reality you're not expecting that to happen. So you want to keep teaching the next topic or other things, and they're like, no, we need more time in this, and I need to link this with this and this so we can reuse it, and they have more practice and all of this. So I guess for me, nobody told me that learning is not a stable up line. It's just like you go back and forth, you have your ups and downs, and then it gets really messy and complicated out there.
It's part of, sometimes we forget that we are working with humans, and every single person is different, and you're trying to plan your class in a way where you try to approach most of your students and to help them to develop this knowledge of them. Yet it's really, really hard for some of them, and you need to spend some time in order to reteach something, in order to work with something again. So the learning theories are out there, but sometimes we don't realize how much or how different are they going to be inside of the same classroom.
And I think I want to rephrase now what I said, and I think one of my biggest pet peeves is that theory, it is linked to practice, but I think what makes a teacher is practice, not theory. Theory, you will learn. It's a mixture of both. But sometimes we tend to emphasize on books and learn this and this new author. But if you don't practice it, and if you don't really go out there and teach certain way, you're not going to be experiencing it and have this full circle kind of thing, complementing your theory with your practice.
It's like, for example, when you watch the sports, it's like you're going to be able to know, or you see how people like swing the bat, or they kick the ball, or they throw the hoop in order to do something. And it's like, okay, you know the theory, you know that you have to make the swing in a specific way, you know that if you kick the ball in a specific way, it's going to go in certain distance and in a certain way.
But once you do it, man,
yet you need to experience it in order to know how to get the timing in order to do the stuff. And I think that's one of the main things. Is like, it's something that we call a lot for sports. Is like you need timing, and that's something that you as a teacher you need to develop too. And that timing, the only way that you're going to be able to develop it is going to be being inside of the classroom, not outside, not with the theory. You can expect and you can get ahead of a lot of problems and a lot of situations, yet the main way for you to get this timing as a teacher is only inside of the classroom. It's only through practice.
And I do agree with that. And I might sound a little bit cuckoo and crazy about mentioning this, but again, I'm thinking
crazy anyway. So
anyways, right? So I'm trying to think of people that they don't have the chance to practice. And then for me, what it worked somehow is just picturing a scenario, or really like thinking about a lot of possibilities, like me picturing myself, imagining myself in a classroom and being like, I'm going to deliver this and I'm going to do this. What my students are going to get? They're going to understand or not? Okay, the ones that they're not going to understand, what am I going to do? Like trying to imagine and creating this scenario, that helps a lot. And I think it's related to critical thinking. I don't know, I'm just saying it. But if you don't have the chance to practice in a class, yes, theory is important, practice, but also learning processes are just complicated because we're dealing with humans, as you said, and different perspectives, opinions,
different learning
stages,
styles, different personalities.
So yeah, we're just trying to figure it out a way.
Maybe one day your students are going to come in a very good mood, and maybe the next day they're going to be like very bitter because they don't want to be there, because maybe they had problems at home, because maybe they had a lot of situations going on, and that's part of you working with humans. And besides of you just judging, you have to understand that sometimes the students are not in the best way for them to learn. And it's like it's a difficult task to meet the deadlines that you need to accomplish, or the goals that you need to accomplish as a teacher, but also working and considering the environment where you are teaching. I think that's one of the key elements in there that are difficult, but yet it's important to know how to balance between one and the other in order to create a good environment for learning.
Yeah, totally. And I feel that we're like kind of generalizing a lot and just talking
Yeah.
about experiences, but I think we can work this out in another episode about really sitting down and unwrapping these strategies, what works best, what doesn't work with certain groups or certain things. I think we can do that in another episode.
maybe
but yeah,
that's
we're
going to be
discussing
another episode.
some
So,
things.
yeah.
So
Another
question, man.
that people were saying, or another comment that people was sending, and it was Fabiola from Escuela de Lenguas. She was mentioning that when you make your plan, your lesson plan, you plan it like very very good and with your timing, 5 minutes for this, 5 minutes for the warm up, and 10 minutes for the presentation, and 20 minutes of practice, and then when you get into the classroom, the timing is never going to match what you are expecting. And that's a difficult
Unless
part.
you're Doctor Strange and
Unless you're
and
Doctor
you can
Strange, so you're
control
able
time.
to control time and stuff. But most of the times, it's really, really hard to match your times with your lesson plan. Sometimes you need to give a little extra time to your for your students to practice with it, or sometimes the explanation of the topic is a little bit longer because they are not getting the idea like quite faster. So it's part of you also knowing or making these needs analysis with your students, so that way you know what works with them, and in that way you try to calculate your timing in a little bit better.
Yes,
So,
I
yeah.
think that's a excellent way to start and a right place to start. Knowing your students and their needs, like that's the
Yes.
most. But I think I can answer that in two ways. First of all, I do see lesson planning just as a blueprint, and it's not something that you necessarily need to follow 100%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's one of the things, and one important thing.
Yes.
But, and this is my opinion,
Uh-huh.
if you're starting on teaching, make your lesson
That's-
plans, plan your classes, and try to follow them as strict as possible. And once you get experience on how to make your timing, that's when you start playing with your time, and you're like, okay, I can do this faster, so I can give more time to this, or maybe I can shorten this part. But after you
Totally,
get a little bit
yes.
experience, if you're starting with this, make your lesson plan and make that your lesson plan becomes your Bible, because that way you're going to be able
Yeah.
to follow it.
And not just a simple Bible, like you really mean Bible, like
Testify.
explaining every single detail that you can imagine in there.
Yes.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Try to make your first lesson plans as detailed as possible, so that way you don't panic when you're like, okay, what's next, what's next. It's like you just go straight into it, and you're like, okay, I need to do this, or this is next, and this after this is going to come next. And so you know how to get your timing again. And after that, once you get experience, then that's when you start playing with it.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's going to come to a point where sometimes you get to a group that it's difficult, or sometimes you get to a class, an activity that you plan that is not working, and you need to improvise. But improvise once that you know how to improvise.
Yes, I love this. Can I just mention
Yes.
something right fast, real quick? There's a huge misunderstanding on the word improvised. Improvised, some people might think of it like, I don't know what to do, I'm just gonna do some dumb stuff and things that just fill up the time. That's not improvising.
That's
For
not the
me, at least in my teaching experience and context, improvising means to take another activity from something that you crafted before and you applied before, and you know it works for this class, and bring it to this class. So that for me is improvising. And I think that you say, like as you said, it comes with practice, because you already have the experience of this activity, and it might work with this group again.
A quick example. Yesterday's class. Hello, guys. I was looking for something else for reported speech, and then I couldn't find something. So I was like, okay, I have my lesson plan. I already know what to do, so I'm going to stick to my lesson plan. And then I found some cups, and then I was like, I can play some kind of beer pong, but educational beer pong, if that's a word. And
Educational
for them,
beer
I
pong.
don't know how to say it. And so they throw the balls, and they instead of beer, because it's not correct to drink in school. I never drink in school. No, actually I don't. I hate people doing that. But
Drinking too?
drinking at school, I don't know. I think it's no, no, that's just wrong.
Only in Fairplay.
Only in fair play, and when you're not going to drive or something. So yes, instead of having some liquid or something, there were questions or there were sentences inside of there. So they had to answer, and then they had to complete the sentence, blah blah blah. And that was an activity that I planned like 15, 20 minutes before, but I knew where my materials were. I was like, oh yeah, I can go and grab this from here, and I can go and grab this from here, and I just need to cut this so I can. And I improvised this activity, and it was a success. And maybe with another group, if I want to do the same activity, maybe it's not going to work. So it's like, it's part of when you're going to improvise, do it when you know how to do it. When you know where your materials are, where you know what are you going to need, and when you know that is going to be something that is going to be meaningful for your students. Don't improvise just to fill out time.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing. Improvise in order to make it meaningful for them.
Yeah, true. And I think we can answer this question as saying, if you are a teacher that is starting at this teaching experience, plan as thoroughly as you can. Mm-hmm. And then I'll also add to that, add a lot of activities. So in case you run out of time, you have activities to pull and have them in class. And if you're an experienced teacher, then you get to improvise and you know your drill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Another comment that Claudia sent us, it was like, you're going to spend part of your payment into material. That's one of the things that happened. And it sucks. And and it sucks. You're going to make copies, you're going to buy different sheets, you're going to buy material, you're going to buy markers, you're going to buy even an eraser. You're going to buy different stuff that you're like, this is going to be useful for my class. And that's something that happens. So I'm not saying that is something that you should do, but sometimes it happens. Schools, it depends on the school that you're working, they can support you with a lot of stuff. I feel blessed for being working in a place where they try to give me as much as possible so I don't have to spend my money into those aspects. But that's not something that happens with everybody. That's one of the things that not everybody has the blessing, because that's the way that I want to call it, to have every single resource at your disposal to teach your class on top of your game.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we teachers are creative and we can create a lot of things, but I think that's material for another episode. The support you get as a teacher from institutions and from government, let's say.
Yes, definitely.
But yeah, that's reality, man. Okay. And I think we have one last question.
We have one last question, and we wanted to leave this question at last, not because it was the last one, but because it was something really interesting that someone asked. And the question, it was like, how hard it really is to be a teacher.
How hard?
How hard it really is.
How tough it gets.
How tough it comes.
And,
I don't know. You want to start with that?
I do. Okay, so how tough? It is tough. Because, well, based on the videos we have recorded, it is tough. Because it's your life. You're devoting your life to something. It might be just a part of your life, but still it's part of your life, and you are growing and learning constantly and investing yourself in something. I guess that will be the tough aspect of it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's that tough if you dedicate yourself to it, and it's, how can I say it? If you're prepared to it, and it's as simple as if you like it and if you enjoy it, and if you kind of get this sense of you're doing something, that kind of eases the toughness. Mm-hmm. But it's hard because, again, we're dealing with human beings, we're dealing with different factors that you cannot control, extra hours work that you don't get paid for them. I can think of a lot of negative sides of teaching, but there's also like a lot of plenty positive things about teaching, and the positive things somehow balance it up with the negative, or at least that is for me. And so it is tough. It is tough.
I would like to say that it is tougher if you get into the class, into the socioeconomic level that you're teaching. If you get into public or private, it depends of a lot of factors how tough it is. But I think that teachers need to be made of an special material.
What do you mean by that?
It's like you need to know and you need to be aware that a lot of things are going to happen and that it's not going to be an easy task. But yet, doesn't matter how tough it is, you need to be prepared for it. And you need to accept the challenge, you need to be up to the challenge that is going to happen. And I don't know, it's like...
You're about to cry here.
I'm not crying.
It gets tough, kids.
I'm not crying, you're
It gets
crying.
tough. I'm not crying, you're crying. Yes,
So,
it gets
yeah.
tough, the context, a lot of things, but I dare to say that you build a community and you find ways to cope with it. And again, this is what we're doing here.
If you prepare your class, if you make it simpler, if you find rubrics, if you design your material, if you get everything prepared for,
It gets easy.
in order to get ahead of a lot of problems, it gets easier. But it comes with time and it comes with patience. That's what I can
Like
say.
everything in life, to be
Yeah,
honest.
very much.
So yeah.
So, we have to say goodbye for now.
I don't have no.
You don't have beer anymore. Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Cheers
so cheers to this.
And
Thank you for watching.
Stay tuned.
Please subscribe. Denle manito arriba. Síganos en redes sociales. Ahí abajo les vamos a dejar todas las redes sociales.
Comment,
Y saludos
comment.
a los diablos de rojos de Durango.
Y a las
Que me dieron la
diablas.
playa- y a las diablas rojas de Durango que me firmaron la playera. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you to the guests, and thank you for being here.
See ya next time.